Since the early days of photography in the 19th century, food has captivated photographers as an endless fascinating subject for artistic experimentation. The very first known photograph of a meal, La Table Servie, was captured by Nicéphore Niepce in 1827. However, it wasn't until the 40s that food photography truly emerged as a distinct genre. This discipline flourished dramatically in the 70s and later experienced as a remarkable aesthetical revival in the 19th, notably driven by visionary artists like Irving Penn, who transformed culinary photography into fine art. Today, digital post-processing has become an essential component of the photographic workflow. Photographers enhance colors, refine contrast, and carefully eliminate imperfections, all while preserving the authentic, mouth-watering appeal of the dishes they photograph. Hello, and welcome to DxO Spotlight, the show where we shine a light on inspiring creators and the powerful tools they use to craft extraordinary images. I'm Nicolas from DxO Lab, and I will be your host. Today, I'm thrilled to welcome two special guests to the show, Solli Kanani and Boris Oliviero. Solli, you are an award-winning Nikon Europe ambassador and widely respected food, travel and lifestyle photographer based here in Paris. Originally from Sweden, you discovered your passion for photography after relocating to the city of light, Paris obviously, over a decade ago. With a background in mechatronic engineering, you impressively speak 5 languages and split your professional life between France and Italy. Your visually striking work has earned multiple nominations at the prestigious World Food Photography Awards and has been showcased by leading brands and renowned international publications. Hello, Solli.
Hello, and I'm very glad to be here today.
Thank you. Joining you today is Boris Oliviero, an experienced amateur photographer who also serves as product director for the Nik Collection at DxO Labs. You are deeply involved in shaping the future of the Nik Collection, continually refining the tools that photographers worldwide rely on to enhance and elevate their images. Hello, Boris.
Hello, Nicolas. Hello, Solli.
In today's episode, we'll dive deep into how Solli creates her stunning culinary images. We will also discuss how she approaches DxO software solution from an enthusiast perspective. Boris will provide insightful perspectives on how DxO's Nik Collection helps photographers, from amateurs to seasoned professionals, push creative boundaries and unlock their full artistic potential. So let's jump right in and get to know Solli and Boris. Solli, on your Instagram, we often get fascinating behind-the-scenes images of your food photography shoot. Why are you posting such content?
Well, in the beginning, I was only posting final images, but I have noticed that my followers are curious to see what's happening behind and around the scenes and to know how I achieve the final image. So that's why I've been posting more behind the scenes.
And so, what is your workflow? How do you manage to achieve such images?
Well, I must say that the majority of my time I put in the planning process, because that's where I make all the decisions on the composition, the lighting and everything. And I think just to take the picture doesn't take more than a few minutes. So I start by sketching out my idea, decide the composition, what kind of light I'm going to use, the color of the backdrops, if it's a dark and moody picture or a light and airy. And then when I'm going to make the setup, I start by placing the plates first, and then I make a test shoot with the light to check the light. And then I start, let's say if I'm going to capture waffles with berries and whipped cream, then in this case, the whipped cream is the most sensitive ingredient. So it's something that I will add in the last part. So I begin by placing the waffles and then the berries, take a test picture, and then I add the whipped cream and take the final image. And after this, I move forward to the post-production.
And so on a more technical point of view, what kind of lights are you using? Is it LED light? Is it flashlight? What kind of lens? Can you go a bit deeper in the technical part?
Well, when I started with food photography, I started with the natural light, so the sunlight. But today I'm using almost flash for photography and LED light for video and stop motion animations. And when it comes to lenses, I only use prime lenses, because I believe that as a photographer, it's you who have to move and it's not the lens. And I believe that the prime lenses they have higher quality in terms of color rendering. And yes, and for the aperture, maybe I can, and the shutter speed, I can talk a little bit about that. So for example, if you don't have any artificial light or LED lights, then I would suggest you to move close to a window so you have the natural light. Because when you're doing, for example, if you want to capture movement or an action, for example, if you dust some sugar on a cake, you need to increase the speed, the shutter speed. And when you increase the shutter speed, you need more light in your scene. So either you go near the window or you have to use a flash. And when it comes to the aperture, for example, if I want to have a creamy bouquet, then I open the aperture as much as possible. If I'm going to do flat lay photography, then I want everything that is on the table to be in focus and sharp. So then I use f8. And if I do macro photography, then I close it very much. So usually I shoot at f16, and then I need a lot of light. So because I want to see the details and the texture. So it totally depends on the photo you want to take, and then you have to adapt.
Okay. And on the editing part, what kind of workflow are you used to use?
Well, I use Lightroom, and then for more advanced editing, I use Photoshop. And from either Photoshop and Lightroom, I then go and continue in Nik, so mostly in color effects.
Okay. But you are also a Photoshop instructor, so why are you still considering using the Nik Collection in your workflow?
Well, it's mostly because of all the time I'm saving. There's a lot of presets that I like a lot in color effects, and also the local adjustments that you can make. Because there are a lot of tools in Photoshop, but I believe that with the local adjustment that you can do, you save a lot of time.
Okay. Can you demonstrate probably maybe on a particular image?
Yes, sure. Okay, so here we have a picture that I've taken of summer berries. It's very colorful, and I'm going to show you how I'm editing it in Color Efex. So I'll be opening it in Nik 8 Color Efex. Okay, and one of my favorite presets is, I'm going to show you, it's the one called Super Punch, and it works amazingly for colorful images like this one. So here I click on it, and there we go. I'll just show you the before and after, and you can see that with the with this preset we have increased the contrast, and that's what I wanted. But there is something else that I would like to do here. I will show you that. I will look for the filter called dark contrasts. And here I click on the plus sign. And as you can see here, the filter is applied on the entire image. But I only want the filter to be applied. I want to make a local adjustment and only have it applied on the green leaves of the strawberries. So I'll add the color mask and put it here, and then I can adjust it like this. Not too much. I don't like to do too hard edits. Something very subtle, but to increase or decrease. But here we can see on this strawberry to the left that it has got like a very dark inner center. And that's because of the color here. So I just need to decrease the red that has been selected and just keep the green. Let's see, something like this. And I think that's it. So this is the before and after. So with very small adjustments, you can achieve something very nice. And now we have higher
quickly as well, in fact.
Very fast, yes. So just with a preset. And here I just added one filter. Sometimes I add more filters, but it depends on the image.
Obviously.
But here it was enough. I just wanted to increase the contrast only on the green leaves of the strawberries.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Boris, now we have seen how Solli edits her photo, or at least this example. Do you have any, let's say, expert tips or advice that you could share with her and mainly with our viewers as well?
Yes, well, I think I don't have to show many things to Solli. This edit is really nice, but for the same photo, a lot of people might want to edit it slightly differently. I can show you. I can show you one or two things that people can do. And actually now that in Nik Collection 8, you can use masks to edit the image. That could be useful, especially on this image where you've got mainly some blacks and some reds. So using an AI mask will be useful because even with a viewpoint or things like that, looking at the colors, it will be difficult to select something, or otherwise you'd have to draw around with a polygon tool.
Yeah.
So having the chance to having the Photoshop mask and using it in Nik will be very useful for this. So I'm going to show you at least the usage of the Photoshop mask with Nik Collection.
Which is new in this version 8. Right.
It is. We are in Photoshop now. Solli gave me a copy of a photo. So I've prepared a few masks in Photoshop to work on this example. So I just did masks using the classic Photoshop masking tool. Once I've got them, I've got 4 of them. I've got 2 strawberries and 2 blackberries. I'm going to open the Nik 8 Color Efex plugin. And I'm going to try to replicate as much as I can.
As much as you can, obviously.
What Solli did in her example. So it was a super punch, which is there. And then we had some dark contrast filter. So I'm going to do that too. And the idea was to put that just on the green part of the image and trying to take care of the center of the strawberry. Okay, that might be a bit much because then, the green, that's it. The green is impacted before, after. So it's not exactly the same, but we're close to what Solli was demonstrating. What you might want to do then is to do a bit more on some part of the image. You might want to bring some more, say, detail in some of the pieces of fruit. And that's where we could use the masks. So for example, I'm going to take some detail extractor and I'm just going to apply it. And by doing that, as you can see, he's going to do a lot of things on the image itself. I might change the contrast a bit to be closer to what Solli was working on. But again, there's a lot more detail in the pieces of fruit, but I don't want it on the whole image because otherwise, it's just, I'm trying to have a focus on some specific pieces. So I'm going to use the mask and I'm going to import some of these masks. And as you can see, as I do that, some of the fruit will kind of pop up on the photo. If I go in the history and move the cursor to show you a bit what it's doing, that's actually, here we are. There. You can see the before and after. So only on some selected pieces of fruit, I could put some detailed extractor. So that's one thing you could do, and it works, of course, for all the filters. So if you want to do some specific modification, you could either use the viewpoint technology that people know in Nik Collection. There are some cases where AI masks might be useful as well. Actually, it depends really of the context of your photos. You know, personally, it's quite often that I use both AI mask and YouPorn technology together, depending on what I need to do. A nice thing is then once you've got that, you can actually jump into another plugin, and the mask you've imported will be carried from one plugin to another, which is new to this version of the Nik Collection. Before you had to, recreate everything, and you couldn't get the mask from Photoshop anyway. Something else you can do is actually create a local adjustment on your photo, like Solli created a color mask, and you could actually re-import that into Photoshop. So if you want to do some more modification into Photoshop, you could reuse the mask you've created in Nik Collection, to do so. So it's a bit of a 360 solution. You can either start from Photoshop and go into Nik, or do Nik and back to Photoshop.
Okay. Aside from your role at DxO, you are also a photographer. How do you personally use the Nik Collection in your photography workflow? Because here your demonstration was super technical, obviously. How do you manage using the Nik Collection for your personal use?
It's a bit similar to an extent. I mean, I'm using it a lot to work on the contrast, a bit like Solli did. I do some concert photography. If you do concert photography in the evening, it's good because you got spotlight on the singer and it's well detached from the background. If you're doing festivals, then it's during daytime, and the people on stage, you can see the singer and you can see the rest of the background. And if you want to have a more impactful photo, you might want actually to work with your background and your foreground. And actually, I use a technique which is very similar to what I've just demonstrated. I'm gonna select the main character, and then do a mask in Photoshop, bring that into Color Efex, and then work on the contrast between my main character and the background. So that's something I do a lot. And as Solli, I'm trying to find a kind of visual signature with the presets, depending on what I want to achieve. So there are some looks that I keep as my presets that I saved over time. But sometimes, depending on the mood of the concert, you might want to try something new, and trying some new presets is a good new starting point. Okay.
Solli, before jumping into a new chapter of this DxO Spotlight, do you have any pieces of advice for, let's say, some of our viewers who would like to experiment food photography?
Yeah, I think for a beginner, I would say just take your camera and go to the closest food market, because there you'll have lots of colorful fruits and vegetables to take with natural light. Or you can just open your refrigerator and pick out what you have and make a setup at home.
Do you have also, let's say, some tips? Because if I'm opening my fridge, I will take, for example, a lemon.
Yeah.
What can I do with my lemon in order to make something more appealing?
Something more creative. I would say, instead of just taking a picture of your lemon, in this case, cut it. Because when you cut it, you'll see how it looks inside. We have so much beautiful details, and especially when we direct the light towards the lemon, we can see much more, and we can even slice it so we have thinner slices, and we can put the light behind it so it will be a bit transparent. Okay. So there are many ways to be creative with vegetables or fruits.
Okay, we'll do that.
But don't hesitate to cut them, because inside there's much more to explore and photograph.
Okay, so it's not just about having a camera, but also having a knife.
Yeah,
that's the first tip I'm gonna keep. Okay, new chapter. I'm gonna ask both of you 5 questions in order for our viewers to know a bit more about you. And we are gonna start with you, Boris.
Okay.
Boris, what product do food photographers use to make vegetables look shiny and fresh?
Okay, so it's not about me because I don't take
your knowledge.
Yes, I don't
just
take a lot of.
Just to see how you prepare this interview with Solli.
Well, not that well apparently. The short answer is I'm not sure. Maybe water. I mean, just dripping water on the fruit might make it shiny for a bit.
This is your final answer?
That is my only answer so
only
far.
Answer?
Yes.
Solli?
Well, water is a good starting point, but I would add something else to the water, and that's glycerin. So, for example, if I want to photograph tomatoes that I have washed and I want to keep the water drops on them, if I only use water, the water will dry after some time. So I used to mix water and some glycerin in a vaporizer, and then I spray it. So we have these beautiful drops that will remain on the tomato. So then you can shoot for hours, and the drops will still be there.
Okay.
And you can also use this on, for example, if you have boiled pasta. You know, the pasta, it dries quite fast. So you can just brush it with some oil. And the same goes for meat and chicken that you have probably maybe barbecued. You can mix oil and some soya sauce and just brush it so it will look more appetizing. Because after some time on the set, it will dry out and it will not look very appetizing. So there are a few tricks that you have to think of when you shoot food.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Second question, not related to food photography.
Thank you.
Who is the photographer, Boris, that inspires you the most? And I'm talking about a photographer, not a food photographer.
Okay. I would say Solli is a photographer, I believe, from the 50s, 60s. He was one of the first photographers to really work with, intense colors. And I find his work striking. Actually, personally, I struggle to do nice color photography. I believe it's really difficult to do that, or at least for me. And the way he does it is just marvelous. So if you don't know Solli,
we'll check.
Yeah, it's a good person to check, and I'm sure many of you will love it.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Solli?
Well, I'm more inspired by painters.
Okay.
Mostly, there are three: Caravaggio, Da Vinci, and Rembrandt. Because of their the way they play with the light. So they use a technique called chiaroscuro. And I think it's amazing how they could achieve a three-dimensional effect by just using paint. And that's what I try to replicate in my still life photos, to have that kind of three-dimensionality by using the light, the contrast between the lights and the shadows.
Okay, so not a photographer, but painters.
Actually, some of your photos do look like paintings from time to time.
Thank you.
Yes, I think so.
So that's why I love to go and see their exhibitions as soon as there is something in town or in other countries to study their work.
Okay, interesting. Let's continue talking about photography. What type of photographer are you, Solli?
Well, I wouldn't define me as a food photographer. I'm more of an observer with a camera in my hand, and I like to take many different kind of photos, like landscape, food, but also street photography. Okay.
What about you, Boris? What type of photographer would you say you are?
I think it's about the same. I do like to do some concert photography, as I said. I do like to do some portrait photography. I think I like to have a contact with the people, when I take photos. But I'm sure I'm going to try some, food photography, because that's very interesting. But I do a bit of street photography. I don't have a specific topic. But yeah, I suppose the main one will be portrait or music photography, concert photography.
Or an observer, like Solli mentioned.
Yes.
Last, black and white or color, Solli?
Black and white.
Oh, interesting. What about you, Boris?
Black and white. As I said, I'd love to do more color, but I find it more difficult. But so I do more in black and white.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for sharing that. So, Solli, you are not only a professional photographer, but also an enthusiastic amateur. And in fact, I read somewhere that you said Paris is the city that gave birth to my passion for photography. Is it really true?
Yes, because it's the magical light in the morning and in the evening that inspired me, and the beautiful architecture, the gastronomy, and the atmosphere, the everyday life that I wanted to capture.
Okay. So on your Instagram, we mainly see color photos. but yet it seems you also have a strong connection with black and white. Can you tell us more about that?
And that I haven't posted on my Instagram, but it's something that I personally like very much. But I think I would have to create a separate account for that and not mix color and black.
And so what does mean black and white to you?
Black and white, I think when I see a black and white photo, it feels like it was taken a long time ago. Mm-hmm. So I want to make the viewer to travel back in time with black and white. And for example, when I go to markets, I love to capture the interaction between the vendors and the local people. And I like to take that kind of pictures and make them in black and white to add a touch of nostalgia and let them travel.
Okay. Do you also still consider the Nik Collection to manage your black and white picture?
Yes, I use the silver Efex to get this black and white, because I feel it's not very easy to achieve that look in Lightroom. But the grain and the film simulation in Silver Efex is brilliant in the presets. Okay. So I use them, and then I add some filters too.
Okay. Yeah. So Boris, Nik Silver Efex is, in fact, as Solli mentioned, probably the gold standard for black and white conversion. With this new version, the version 8 of the Nik Collection, how has Silver Efex been improved?
We've been reorganizing Silver Efex a little bit. We've been tidying up, if I can say so. And it makes a big difference in the usage of the plugin. So maybe I can show you on my screen.
Okay, let's go for that.
I've got this photo taken in Spain. I'm not going to create any masks for this photo. I'm going to go directly into Silver Efex. Okay, the first thing, so I'm just going to make it fit. The first thing that you might see on the screen is now we've got color thumbnails in the bottom left corner. Because although when you import the image into Silver Efex, it's desaturated, you still are going to work with the colors. And it's important to have a view on this. And actually, since Nik 8.1, we even extended this so you can actually go into your settings in the compare version, and you got the choice to compare your edit either with the color photo or the desaturated version of it. So depending on what you're doing, you can switch from one to another. The other thing we did is to reorganize the right-hand side, actually, and the left-hand side of the plugin, so it's more homogeneous with the other plugins. And more than that, it's getting clearer to understand what you apply on your photo. In the past, if you remember, we had all the tools on the right-hand side, so it's a bit like a normal darkroom where you've got all the tools on the table. You might use some, and you might have some which are in the way, and it's not the best. Now you just gonna have one filter, and we're gonna come back to that when you start Silver Efex. The other ones are on the left-hand side, and you can pick the one you want. One extra thing about that, what it means is when you apply a preset, it's only gonna apply the filters needed for that preset, where in the past you were applying a preset and all the tools and all the filters were always there. I was mentioning that when you open Silver Efex, you do have one filter by default. That's the film type. It's a bit like to mimic when you were in analog mode and you were having an analog camera.
Going to the store.
You went to the store and buy a film, and the first thing you would do is put the film into the camera. So that's your first step. So we decided that we wanted to have this by default when you open Silver Efex, so you can choose the type of film you want to use, and then you carry on from there. I was saying, it's a bit like a dark room. It's really a digital dark room because you can, if I can say so, cheat on the film. When you were to go to buy a film, you were sensitive to some colors, and there was nothing you could really do. You could put a filter in front of your lens to change that a little bit, but there was some limitation. With this, you can actually kind of create your own film because you can modify, the sensitivity of colors. If you look at this image, what I would like to do is concentrate more on the bottle itself and have the background as the background. So the first thing I might want to do is actually to push a bit the green and just to see maybe the yellow a bit, and I might, just change a bit the way the image is exposed, just like that. So we're going to go slowly. The idea is when you work like that is just to progress in your image and try things, knowing that like in any other plugin, you can come back to any settings, and that's maybe a big difference than when working with Photoshop. When we work with Photoshop, which is very powerful, you need to have some kind of plan in your head on how you're going to approach the image. And depending on what you do, it's going to be difficult to change. On this, I can actually progress and move things the way I want. So probably what I'm going to do is do some basic adjustments and maybe push the structure on this to give a bit more drama on the image, just like this. And already, it's quite... Okay, let's move to black and white for that. It's already quite different from what we had to start with. There's one thing we've added also in Silver Efex is some local adjustments for some of the filters. So it's not everywhere because it's not always needed. It's still black and white. We're developing things. But at least on selective tones and clear view, that could be very useful. So let's add clear view on this image. When I clear view in previous versions, you could see that, it was applied to the whole image, which I don't really want. I mean, clear view, when it was first created, was to bring the landscape out of the fog. So it would give some structure to some things. In time, we realized that it was great for portrait and for other usage. But I rarely want to use it on my entire image unless I've got this foggy landscape.
Yeah.
So on this one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to probably put just a control point there. I'm going to show the mask to see what I'm targeting. So as you might know, the control point works with luminance and chrominance. So I can actually fine tune, where I want the effect. Once I've got that, I can actually push clear view on this to, change actually just the shape of the bottle. Okay. And then from there, I can add vignetting and things like that just to make the image a bit darker around. Actually, vignette will be enough there.
That's very beautiful because the bottle is popping out in the
Yeah.
image.
And it's super easy, in fact, to manage. Are you using this new version of Silver Efex as well?
Yes, the new one.
And so what's your feedback about what, because in fact, Boris let us know, let's say, a full overview of what's new. For you as an amateur photographer, what is important in what Boris demonstrates? And then we will let you manage the end of your sentence. Solli,
For me, the two most important new features is that you can see the original color image in the left bottom. So you can see the colors that you're working on, but also the fact that you're not getting all the filters when you're selecting the preset, because that's quite time consuming to look into to look for the right filter. So I think that's one of the features that I think has improved.
What is interesting with such improvements is depending who you are, what type of photography, what you are expecting, you will consider some feature more important than others, even if at DxO we are not considering exactly the same way, in fact. And this is what is rich we're doing so. This is part of your job, in fact.
It is, yes.
But also the local, adjustments that you can use the mask only on the bottle.
There are just a couple of extra things, if I may.
Yes, obviously.
We've added a button to send, when you're using it in Photoshop, in previous version you could export the image as a JPEG or a TIFF. Now you can actually send that as a layer. So let's say I like this version, but I want to carry on working on it. I can actually send this version as a layer. I've got a little warning to say it will create the layer once I close the plugin, but it's going to register that. And it means I can try other things. I could say maybe I want to put some more grain, or I want to change something in my curve, and I can carry on like this I'm going to do not show again. I'm aware of this now. But you can really try various versions, and actually by bringing them into Photoshop, then you can even, play with different layers and try to bring some details from one layer to another to have your final image with maybe, I don't know, sometimes more grain somewhere or some details you want to bring. Just quickly, because we're talking about how black and white brings the photo into, another time.
Another time, yeah.
I'm just gonna bring it to color effects, to analog effects, sorry, very quickly. So as I said, you can see that before he's doing that, he's going to create the layers. So the imported layers will be hidden,
yeah,
and then the active layer will be visible. Then I can play with that, and then it's going to go back directly into analog. And then from there, it's the same thing. I can start playing with the filters. I've got everything I need there. So maybe I'm going to create a bit of bokeh, just like that. So, it's like I've got actually not such a good lens, because at the time, lenses were not the same quality. And in order to have this kind of, old-fashioned image, that's something you might want to do. And you could add a bit of dirt and scratches on that as well. So I'm just going to pick one. Okay, and maybe reduce it a bit, but we start to see that there are some marks there on the image. If I do a before after, you can see that it's not that visible, but you register it when you see the image. And the last thing I might want to do is to put a frame. And again, I'm not going to take something which is very obvious, but it will burn the edges a little bit. And I think there we've reached a level where the image looks like really, an old-fashioned photo. There's other things we could put there, but it's you can play for hours.
Yeah.
That's the fun of it, basically. It's not like working in Photoshop where you need to know exactly in what order you're going to work. You can actually try things, remove things, and carry on.
It's more difficult within Photoshop to experiment and to have quick feedback, quick result.
Because there you have so many tools. So here you have the presets to start as a starting point, and then you can adjust the filters or add. But I really like what you did now, that you add the final touch to the black and white image in the analog effects. Very beautiful.
Thank you, Boris. Super interesting. How do you feel about analog effect? I know that you are not a user of analog.
But now I will use it, now when I saw how you were using it to add the final touch to the black and white images.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode of DxO Spotlight. Thank you so much, Solli, for being there.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Boris, as well, in fact, for your expertise and also to share your passion about photography, which is super interesting.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you, Solli, for all the tips, and make sure to try some of them.
I hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and that you will open your fridge and start experimenting food photography. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel for more great content, and click the notification bell so you won't miss upcoming episodes of DxO Spotlight and our tutorials. We'd love to hear from you, so leave us a comment below with your thoughts or any questions for Solli or for DxO team. For more information about everything we'll talk about today, including links to Solli's images, workshops, and DxO products, check out the video description below. Thanks again for watching, and see you in the next episode of DxO Spotlight.